Hello, students. A very good morning for you. Myself, Aisha. Today, we are going to start a new chapter from your SSLC second part of English. Lesson 7, name of the chapter here is The Girl Who Was Anne Frank, written by Louis D. Jong. Before going to understand about the chapter, The Girl Who Was Anne Frank, let us understand who is this author, Louis D. Jong. He was born in the year 1914 and he died in the year 2005. He was a Dutch journalist and historian specializing in the history of the Netherlands in World War II and the Dutch resistance. In 1955, he was commissioned by the government to write the history of the Netherlands in World War II. Between 1969 and 1991, his magnum opus, The Kingdom of the Netherlands in World War II, was published in 14 volumes. The present lesson, that is, The Girl Who Was Anne Frank, is a very great work which shows how the Nazi government, that is the Hitler, how he looked after the human beings. So, this lesson presents the tragic story of a teenage Jewish girl who records in her diary the sufferings undergone by her and her parents before she was put to death by the Nazi government of Hitler. The diary was published posthumously. So, children, before going for the theme of the lesson, in the pre-reading activity, it is given, have you heard of Adolf Hitler? What is the uppermost in your mind when you think of him? When the name of Hitler comes, how do you react? How do you react? What are your thinkings about him? Majority of the people here, when speak about Hitler, they say he was a dictator. His words were his law. He unhumanly treated the Jewish people as he was a Nazi. So, in the present chapter, we are observing the girls named Anne Frank, and what you are observing here on the screen, Anne Frank as well as her sister Margot. So, the present chapter, what it states, let us go through that. The first paragraph of the chapter states, and how do you know that the human race is worth saving? An argumentative young student once asked his professor. What he asked? How do you know that the human race is worth saving? So this was asked by an argumentative young student to his professor. His professor replied, said the professor, I have read Anne Frank's diary. See, throughout the world, when we go through the history of the world, human beings in one or the other way, they have suffered a lot. In the European countries, we come to know that the black people suffered under the hands of white Europeans. And here in Germany, Nazis unhumanly ruled the Jewish people. So, in every country, we observe that in different ways, the people, sometimes by race discrimination, sometimes by caste, creed, color, So these all things made the human beings to struggle very hard to live their life. And here, one of the argumentative was arguing a lot. One of the student here asked his professor, "How do you know that all human race is worth saving?" For this, the professor said, "I have read Anne Frank's diary." So, when he says like this, what is there in the Anne Frank's book? What is there in her diary? Yes, coming to the second paragraph of the chapter, how this diary of a teenage girl came to be written and served is a story as dramatic as the diary itself. No one foresaw the tremendous impact that the small box would have, not even her father, who had it published after Anne's death in a Nazi concentration camp. See, in the beginning, the diary was not published. The diary came outside. The people of the world came to know the hardship of Hitler when Anne passed away. The small girl, that is a teenage girl, she had written very neatly and maintained records in her diary how were the sufferings undergone by her and her parents before she was put to death by the Nazi government of Hitler. So, the diary explains here. No one saw the tremendous impact that the small book could have not, even her father did not know about that. So, it was published after Anne's death in a Nazi concentration camp. The Diary of Anne Frank has now been published in 19 languages including German. Because in German, why the word here including German is quoted? Because there it was the rule of Nazis. The Nazis looked after the Jews very cruelly. They behaved inhumanly with them. So the diary, because the diary is very interesting, it is showing the real fact, the real problems faced by the Jews. Because she was a teenage girl, she did not, she has not written wrong things here. She has not included the wrong things, whereas she has shown how herself, her sister, her parents, how they suffered in the camps here before they were put to death. At last they were put to death. After her death, the diary came outside and the people knew the tragedy here. So, the diary of Anne Frank today, it has been translated. It has been published in 19 languages including German. Why it is published in 19 languages? Because people's curiosity is there to know about the inhuman ways how Hitler did with the people, how he behaved with the Jews. The people wanted to know that. So the people demanded, and because of this diary, it has been published in 19 languages including Germany and has sold nearly 2 million copies. Made into a play by Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett, it won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, and in the 1956 to 57 season alone played in 20 different countries to 2 million people. In London, it ran for nearly 6 months at the Phoenix Theatre. 20th Century Fox turned it into a film. See, when we go through this story, when we observe the diary of Anne Frank, it is most astonishing that this diary, it has been published in 19 languages including German, and it is already after the publication of into 19 languages, it has sold nearly 2 million copies. Mean to say that 2 million people purchased the copies of Anne Frank's diary because people want to know People want to understand. So, how many? Nearly 2 million copies. And it was also translated into a play, that is a drama, by Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett. They played the drama also. And because of this, it won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. See, for Anne Frank's diary, which was played by Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett, it won Pulitzer Prize for Drama. And in the year 1956 to 57, it was played in 20 different countries to 2 million people. See, because it is having its own importance, because it is showing the inhuman ways of Hitler, because it is showing the cruelty of Hitler and the sufferings of the Jewish people. People want to know what is the truth hidden inside Anne's diary. So, in 20 different countries of the world, nearly 2 million people observed these dramas. So, in London itself, in alone city of London, it ran for nearly 6 months. See, a single film, it ran for nearly 6 months at the Phoenix Theatre, which is very important here. You have to remember this point. In the Phoenix Theatre of London, the film of Anne Frank's made with Anne Frank's diary, it ran for nearly 6 months. 20th Century Fox turned it into a film. In this way, this diary has got a prestigious place, we can say. In other words, we can say that it has got a very prestigious place. People acted on it, so it won Pulitzer Prize. It was also played in 20 different countries, and in London city alone, it ran for nearly 6 months in the Phoenix Theatre. By this, we understand that this diary is having a very good place, and so it is appreciated by millions of people. To understand this amazing response, it is necessary first to understand the girl who was Anne Frank. So now we are in the beginning of the lesson, we are understanding how it is changed into different languages. So many countries of the world were interested, showed curiosity, and it was played into dramas, it was translated into films, and it ran in the London theatre alone for 6 months. So we are all observing, we are all knowing that. So these things, what is the reason behind this? What is the amazing fact hidden behind here? To understand this amazing response, what is there? Why it is played in 20 different countries? Why it is played into a play by Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett? Why it is published in 19 languages? Why in London it ran for nearly 6 months at the Phoenix Theatre? To understand all these amazing facts, first we have to understand who was Anne Frank. Then come on, let us know. When Hitler came to power, Otto Frank was a banker living in Germany. He had married in 1925. In 1926, his first daughter, Margot, was born. And 3 years later, his second, Anneliese Mary. She was usually called Anne, sometimes Tender One. So, we come to know why all these things happen. We have to know who is this Anne Frank. For this interesting question, the answer here is Anne Frank. She was also known as Anneliese Mary. She was also known as Anneliese Mary. She was the second daughter of Otto Frank. She was the second daughter. Then who was the first daughter? The first daughter of Otto Frank was Margot. See, when Hitler came to power when Hitler came to power in Germany, at that time Anne's father was named as Otto Frank. Anne's father was Otto Frank. The name of the father of Anne was Otto Frank. So he was a banker who was living in Germany. So in the year 1925, Otto Frank got married, and after 1 year, that is in the year 1926, the wife of Mrs. Otto Frank gave birth to a baby girl whose name was Margot. And after 3 years, he got a second daughter who was named Annal who was named Annalise Mary. She was usually called Anne. The meaning of Anne here means tender one. Anne had an elder sister named Margot. Anne's full name was Annalise Mary. And she was usually called as Anne. And the meaning of Anne here is tender one. So, what happened? His father was a banker. So, now he is having how many children? Two baby girls are there. One is Margot, another one is Anne. In the autumn of 1933, when Hitler was issuing one anti-Jewish decree after another, Otto Frank decided to emigrate to hospitable Netherlands. He started a small firm in Amsterdam. Shortly before the outbreak of war, he took in a partner, Mr. Van Dan, a fellow refugee. Mostly they traded in spices. Business was often slow. Once, Otto Frank was forced to ask his small staff to accept a temporary cut in their modest wages. No one left. They all liked his warm personality. They admired his courage and the evident care he took to give his two girls a good education. See what happened in the autumn of 1933, Hitler was issuing one anti-Jewish decree after another. So because Otto Frank was a Jewish, Hitler was a Nazi. So what he did, Otto Frank decided to emigrate to hospitable Netherlands. Emigrate. What is the meaning of emigration? Emigration. Migrate, migration. Emigrate, emigration. What do you understand by this word? See, before understanding emigrate, let us try to understand what is the meaning of the word migrate. Migrate, migration. You may have listened the word migrate, especially in some of the seasons. You may be observing herds of birds will be flying. Okay, they will go to certain place and after some time they once again return. In the same way, human beings when move from their native place, they settle there, and later after some time once again if they are returning to their native place, it is known as migration or migrate. Emigrate is a word which explains that emigrate is a word which means they must have to leave the country permanently and go to live in another. So they want to come back to their native place here. This is known as emigrate. So Otto Frank decided to emigrate to Netherlands. He decided to emigrate to Netherlands. So emigrate here means to leave the country or to leave the native place permanently and go to live in another. So already you came to know here the Hitler has come to power, and the party by which Hitler came to power was none other than Nazi party, and this is a political party which is led by Adolf Hitler, which controlled Germany from the year 1933 to 1945. This was a very black period, black age for the Jews here. So Otto Frank decided to emigrate to Netherlands. So what he did, he emigrated. Finally, he emigrated with his company, with his family, with his friends to Netherlands. And what he did, he started a small firm in Amsterdam. He started a small firm in Amsterdam. Shortly before the outbreak of the war, he took in a partner. So, in a new place, it was very difficult for Otto Frank to run his business. So, what he did, he took Mr. Van Dan, a fellow refugee, as his partner. Who was Mr. Van Dan? Mr. Van Dan was a fellow refugee, and he became the partner in the business for Otto Frank, and they traded in spices. Their business was related with spices. With this, let us end the class and let us go understand further what were the difficulties faced by these people in the Amsterdam, that is in Netherlands. Until then, have a good day.